So I'm about to do something that is honestly pretty whack and kind of insane, but if I don't do it now, then I am going to regret it, and this is going to cause a lot of problems in the future. I'm essentially going to be migrating my new platform, Cosden Code, away from Next.js after it just launched. So if you haven't heard, last week I launched this, right? This is Cosden Code. This is my new coding platform where you basically have interactive courses and guided projects on pretty much everything that you need to have a successful career as a full stack React developer. You can see here the roadmap that we have. And now that we've officially launched and that I actually have users over here, as you can see, I'm about to change everything and completely remove Next.js. And in this video, I want to share with you why I'm doing that and what I'm actually going to be migrating to. Now, if you want to see the result of this endeavor, definitely check out Cosden Code at cosdencode.com or click the first link in the description down below. Now, let's talk about Next.js. Let me come here and let me open up the dev server, which I have running. And this is Cosden Code, but now running locally on my machine. So why am I migrating off of Next.js? What went wrong? What happened? Well, before I say anything, I just want to give you a disclaimer and tell you that these are my own personal reasons, and some of them are subjective and may not specifically apply to you or to someone else using Next.js. It's not that Next.js is necessarily bad, it's that Next.js is bad for me in this specific project. So the first thing about Next.js that I really don't like, and this is something that has been frustrating me every single day, every single action that I take on Next.js, and that is the fact that it's incredibly, and I really mean incredibly slow in dev mode. If I can come here to go to the leaderboards, for example, I already clicked, my hands are here, right? And it takes so long to actually get to a page and really to do anything. If I go here to the pricing, again, it takes time, right, to do that. Anything that I do, I go here to like my profile, again, I click. It takes so long to actually get anywhere. The profile here was really slow, and this gets to you because you're doing it all of the time, right? Every action that you do, you're doing it all of the time. And again, this is very subjective because you might not be bothered by it, and there's certainly a lot of developers that really don't care, right? But me personally, I'm not used to this. I'm used to things being very fast, and working with Next.js is extremely slow, especially when you consider the fact, if I go here to the roadmap, when you consider the fact that, let's go to this JavaScript course, for example, again, it's going to take forever to actually load. Once it does finally load, if you go here, you're going to see that all of these have a bunch of video lessons, which I'm filming, editing, and importantly, I'm rendering on my machine, which means that I spend a lot of time rendering out a bunch of videos, and this slows down my machine considerably, and it basically puts Next.js to a halt. Like Next.js just stops working, and I cannot actually meaningfully contribute to my project while I'm rendering, which, as you can see here, is a lot of the time. And so that's my first reason, but that's not enough. If it was just this, I would be fine. I would just tough it out or figure out a different way, but there's actually more reasons. And for that, we have to go and look inside of the actual code. Now, the whole reason why Next.js is so slow is because of the fact that everything happens on the server. So in Next.js, by default, every single component, unless you mark it otherwise, is a server component, which means that it runs on the server, and it also means that it can be asynchronous, which of course has benefits, but also has drawbacks. One of those benefits, of course, is the fact that you can directly fetch stuff inside of the component itself instead of doing it on a client. You can actually talk to your database directly from a server component, like I have here, right? I'm getting the current user with the profile. This one, I believe, is a function here, which, right, it is calling my database. If I open up this one over here, you're going to see that here I'm calling directly my Drizzle database. All of this is happening directly on the server. This is useful. This also means that you're not shipping any JavaScript to the browser unless you need it, right? You're basically taking all of this code here, running it on the server. That's going to generate some HTML, and you're directly just shipping that HTML to the client, which makes it much faster and makes it lighter in terms of the JavaScript bundle. Even sometimes there is no bundle at all. But as cool as that is, that also comes with some downsides. For example, every single navigation click, every single component that you load has to go on the server, which means that it's inherently going to be slower. Even in development mode, I mean, especially in development mode, but even in production, even if you have all of the optimizations set in place with Next.js, even in production, you feel every click, every navigation is slightly slower because it is going on the server. And that's fine if the application that you're building is mostly a static application, right? If, for example, I only had the landing page over here, maybe I had a blog, right? Maybe I had an e-commerce store or something like that, that would be fine because there's not a lot of interactivity going on inside of the application. But here for Cosden Cosden Code, that is not the case. Most of my functionality, most of the thing that makes up this application is interactive. For example, if I go here to one of my courses, let's go to design patterns in React and let's find one of the lessons over here. I'm going to show you what a lesson actually looks like. I'm going to click it. And of course, now we have to wait like 10,000 years for it to load. It's still loading, right? I'm still not doing anything. This is unbearably slow. Like, how can Next.js be that slow? Anyways, it finally loaded, right? This is the main part of the application, right? This is all of the interactivity of the application. You have here the code editor. This is a client component. You have here the preview here. This is a client component. The console here is also a client component. This chat over here is a client component. All of this should be on the client, should be interactable. And the fact that I'm using Next.js makes interacting with this so difficult. I've been getting so many weird and strange bugs because of Next.js, because everything is on the server. For example, you type here inside of this editor over here, and this will, every time that you type something, right, with a little debounce, will save your code to the database. Sometimes when you save, for some reason, Next.js decides to refresh everything, and then your code that you've just typed just basically disappears until you refresh the page. That is super, super annoying. And this happens only because I'm using Next.js. Now, here's the thing. You're going to say probably that this is a skill issue, right? That if I knew how to use Next.js correctly, I wouldn't have any of these issues. And to that, I would say that you're completely right. So I'm a React Native developer, right? Most of my career, I've been working with React Native, and React Native, for the most part, was only on the client. So I know the client really well, and all my experience, all my muscle memory, all my intuitive understanding is from the client, not from the server. And so now that I'm dealing with server stuff, there's a bunch of these behaviors that I don't have fundamental experience with, and that's why I'm getting all of these issues here. And I mean, that's kind of expected, right? I mean, you do need to spend time with the thing to learn it, to get experience with it, to get a fundamental intuitive understanding on how it works. But the question that came up as I was doing that is this really my priority right now with this platform? Do I really want to spend all of my time fighting with the framework, trying to learn it, trying to struggle with it? Or am I much better off actually building and shipping features that is going to make this platform better for the users that are actually using it? And the more I worked with Next.js, the more that I saw all of these loading things that just really got to me, the more the answer to that question was that no, I don't want to spend time fighting the framework. I want to spend time building the actual features. Because all of my experience is on the client. And if this whole thing was on the client, I would be shipping way more features way quicker and with much less bugs. Especially considering, if I go back here to my code, just how complex the mental model of server components actually is and how much you have to change the way that you're thinking to kind of work with server components. Again, it's not a fault to server components themselves, maybe a little bit, but just the mental model itself is very, very complicated, and it's so different than traditional client-side React. For example, let me show you. Let's come here to lesson, and I believe it's grid over here, lesson grid, I guess layout over here. Yeah, let's go to lesson grid left over here and the explorer. And yeah, this is the one that I'm looking for, right? So here we have this lesson explore server component, right? So again, you always have to make a difference and know which components are server components, which components are client components. Here we have a server component, and this one is rendering out a client component here, this lesson explorer client, and is passing as props server components to it inside of a suspense boundary, right? So here we have the lesson explore conversation. This one is a component here defined in the same file. This is async. It's doing some data fetching stuff, and it's being passed here as a prop to this client component. And then you go and you open up this client component here, and you can see something that you typically expect, right? Here you can see that we have some state variables over here. We have a ref, we have a use effect, right? Typical client-side stuff. But then if I scroll down, if I remember here, all right, I changed it to using CSS, but still it's exactly the same thing. Here, based on the actual value of the state variable in my client component, I'm toggling between the chat panel or between the tasks panel. And before that, before doing it using CSS, because here I'm just basically setting some tailoring classes based on the state, I was actually conditionally rendering out these components, which is very confusing mentally because you have a client component which runs on the client, and then it receives server components as props. And then based on the actual state on the client, you're changing something on the server, but you're not really, because then the server components are already there, right? And it's very, very confusing, especially when you add the fact that this client component, any client component, also runs on the server, right? Client components, even though they're client components, they also run once on the server and then they hydrate back on the client. Do you see what I mean? There's like so many things to think about. There's so much mental overhead just to build your applications. And for what? Just to get a little bit better performance when it comes to server components, not shipping a JavaScript bundle. Fair enough, right? Sometimes that performance is worth it. But for me and for my application at this point in time, it is not. And so for me, just looking at this code, because by the way, I've already started the migration in a separate branch. So now I came back to this code over here. Already, this looks so complicated. This looks so weird. And I did try my best, right, to follow all of the design patterns that I teach here on my YouTube channel and also on the platform. But I had to fight with Next.js so much. And again, it's not perfect because I don't fundamentally understand Next.js. So I came to the decision that after launch over here, after we have over 100 users on the platform, I'm going to completely change everything and just push that update at some point, and hopefully there's going to be no bugs. So now the question is, what am I migrating to, right? Because I'm pretty sure that you want to know this and I've kept you long enough. So let me tell you, I'm going to go with Tanstack Start over here. Let me make this a little bit bigger. I'm going to be migrating to Tanstack Start. Now there are specific reasons why I chose Tanstack Start as opposed to something else like React Router, for example, and here they are. So Tanstack Start, what makes this even more insane than it actually is the fact that it's not currently in a stable version. I'm hoping for a stable version before I push it out, but even then it's fine. It's release candidate. It's fine. To be honest, I would have shipped it as well if it was in beta. It's fine. YOLO. We're going to make it work. The reason why I chose Tanstack Start is because I have a lot of experience working with Tanstack Query, right? React Query. I've been using this for like almost a decade, not really, but ever since it came out. And I have a lot of experience with it. I know it inside and out. And I fundamentally understand, and agree with the mental model of Tanstack Query. I've also used a lot Tanstack Router. We actually used it in my previous course, Advanced Patterns React, for the routing solution. I liked it as well. I loved the API. I loved how nicely it integrates with Tanstack Query. And so Tanstack Start felt like a natural step and a good choice for my project. And as I've been starting the migration to Tanstack Start on my separate branch, I've been loving it so far. The API is really, really nice. I love what you can do with like server functions. It does take some getting used to it, right? Because again, it's a whole new framework that I have to learn, but learning Tanstack Start is much easier, much closer to what I know, right, and have experience with in React. And so for my project, especially considering that it's a really interactive platform, Tanstack Start just makes so much sense. And so, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm currently in the process of doing. And at some point I will have it finished. I will push it and hopefully there will be no bugs. And definitely I will be making a video showing the comparison between my code in Tanstack Start and my code in Next.js, and also talking about the migration and how I actually migrated everything over. But that's going to be for another video. Now, before I end the video, if you want to join and try out Cosden Code, right, it's available. Go to cosdencode.com, first link in the description, and you're going to get access to all of these courses over here, which are currently available right now. And there's also this complete roadmap over here, which once again, you can look at it for yourself. It is going to cover every single thing that you need to know and learn to have a successful career as a full stack developer. And there's going to be more. This is not the only content that is there. There's going to be more. It's just that I haven't been able to plan that far ahead. I will add as time goes on next year. So there you go. That's it. That's all that I have for this video. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure to leave it a big thumbs up. You can also click here to subscribe. You can click here to watch a different video of mine. And with that being said, my name has been Cosden. This is Cosden Solutions. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Ciao, ciao.